And of course, we sure hope that something could be done as soon as possible. But for now, let's shift gears and focus on the topic of conversation today, and that it's all about tuberculosis. And remember, like we said, of course, World TB Day is usually observed every 24th day of March, which is tomorrow. But of course, in preparation for the same, we just want to understand where we're at as a country as far as dealing with or fighting that is TB. Of course, there is a concern about the rising cases of TB in 2020. Of course, we witnessed a slight dip of the same, but 2021, of course, there is an increase, which is very, very concerning for all of us. So then where are we at? What are we doing to also combat the same and bring the numbers down? Well, that is a discussion that we're going to have this morning. And of course, to help us with the same, we have Dr. Irungu Karuga, who is a TB consultant from the Ministry of Health. Thank you very much, Dr. for coming back today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine,
doing well. Okay. And then we also have Dr. Lorraine Mugambi Nyaboga, who's a Chief of Party, USAID TB Act 2, as well as Center for Health Solutions right here in the country. Thank you very much, Dr. Lorraine. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
All right, karibu sana. We also have Joshua Makanda, who is a TB survivor. Thank you, Joshua. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Very well. Okay. And last but not least, we have Elizabeth Njuguna, who is a TB survivor as well. How are you doing, Elizabeth, this morning? You're well. Thank you very much to all of you for coming by today. Woke up pretty early, huh?
Yeah.
But we appreciate it. We appreciate it. Dr. Lorraine, let's just start with you. You know, we've had TB almost on a daily basis, right? Every single day you hear TB here, TB there. But then again, when it comes to the magnitude and the intensity of the same is where there's usually, you know, a big, big problem. So let's just understand TB. Let's go back to class.
Yes. Wow. Thank you very much, first of all, Winnie, for having us. And like you mentioned, it's an important topic because tuberculosis is a very prevalent disease, especially in this part of the world. As you may be aware, TB affects about 10 million people globally every year, and about 1.5 million people die from tuberculosis every year. Closer home in Kenya, the World Health Organization estimates that we have about 140,000 Kenyans who suffer from tuberculosis every year. And out of those, about 30 to 33,000 actually die on an annual basis. So really the problem is that it's a big problem. Kenya is a high TB country, both for TB and TB HIV. And what we need to do really is to get word out there that TB still exists and that there's quite a number of Kenyans who are affected by tuberculosis but do not get diagnosis on time. So it is still a big problem. Yes.
All right. So then again, what exactly is it? You know, when you talk about like TB, because most of the time we just hear TB, who alikuwa na TB, or who you are na TB, you know? So but what exactly is it, and which part of the body does it usually affect?
Fantastic. Thanks for that question. So tuberculosis is an infectious disease that is transmitted through the air, through droplets. And it's an airborne disease that is transmitted when someone has TB disease, coughs, laughs, sings, and then the droplets, the infective droplets, are, you know, suspended in the air, and then you breathe it in. So when you breathe in that infected air with the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that's a bacteria responsible for TB, what happens is that that bacteria gets into your lungs first. So on the most part, tuberculosis affects the lungs. Many times our body's immune system is strong enough to contain the infection within our lungs. And it is only when our immunity deteriorates for whatever reason, then we start developing signs and symptoms like coughing, fever, losing weight, having night sweats, and it's at that point that we say you have TB disease. So just to back up a little bit, it's an infectious airborne disease, very much like COVID. I know most of us now understand COVID, very similar to COVID. And it's transmitted through the air, and it's quite infectious.
All right. Yes. Okay. And you see, I'm talking about like some of the symptoms, which of course will go deeper into what does it look like exactly. Someone might be like, but yeah, it mimics like other symptoms. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's very easy for people to just miss and say, yeah, maybe today was too hot. The temperature was
Yes,
too hot. That is why
absolutely.
I'm sweating at night. Or maybe I'm a little bit stressed. That is why, you know, I have like headache here, fever there, and all those things. But of course, we'll delve deeper into then the symptoms. What does it look like? And at what point do you start noticing some of the symptoms, right?
Yeah.
But then again, we also have like latent, active TB, all right? Dr. Irungu, do you want to take that? I mean, Dr. Yeah, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure, I will take that. So, so as Dr. Lauren mentioned, is that when a person who produces the TB bug or the TB germ talks or coughs around you, you breathe that in, and as she said, you can contain that infection within your lungs, and that's what we call latent TB infection.
All right.
That it does not progress beyond that. However, when your body's immunity is not able to contain that and spreads to other areas and you start developing signs and symptoms, we call that TB disease.
Right.
So it's we need to be very clear that there's something called TB infection. You have the TB bug in you, which almost a quarter
Of the population.
of a
has
population,
it.
which is about
1 in 4.
12, 13 million Kenyans
Yeah.
have today.
All right.
But then they don't have the TB disease.
Okay.
They don't have the disease.
Okay.
But then there are those individuals who progress now from the infection to getting the signs and symptoms that bring them down. They're coughing, they have the night sweats, your children aren't praying very well, all kind of thing. It's called TB disease. So that's the main difference between TB infection and TB disease. And TB infection presents us with an opportunity to prevent you
prevent
from
the
developing
disease.
the disease.
Right.
So there's something we can do for preventing you from getting infected.
And
And then
preventing you
from
from getting the disease.
Infection to
The
disease.
disease.
Yeah,
That's
true.
interesting. Because then that brings in the aspect of at what point do you see the signs and symptoms so that we prevent you from getting from the infection then getting to the disease part. But before you answer that, let's speak to Joshua. So Joshua, 2017 is where, you know, your life changed a little bit, right? Where, of course, you were just working, you know, and then again, you started feeling cold, right?
Yes.
Take us back to 2017.
2017 was the year that I was diagnosed with tuberculosis. I started developing signs of coughing, chest pain, night sweats, weight of loss. My weight went down.
Okay.
She went down. Even I thought, what's happening to me? I'm eating, but there's no change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I made a step of at first I didn't know what's going on with my body. You know, the moment you start coughing, you wonder, why am I coughing? Or is it a motorbike that carried me, that that I breathed in?
Yes.
Or it's just the dust, or maybe it's a homa. So I didn't actually know what's going on with my life.
All right.
So I took a step and I went to a chemist. I bought over-counter drugs. Then I took them over like one day. The coughing went down like 2 days, but later on came back again. But this time it was so much severe. When I coughed, I felt like chest pain. I feel like I need to scratch my inside. Unajua that mwasho?
Yes. Yeah.
So I took them. Then after some point, my dad advised me, by this time you should go and test for TB. So that's when I took another step and went to Mukuru Health Center. I gave out my sputum. I explained to the doctor how I'm feeling. They told me, now this is what we're going to do. We are going to take the sputum. We're going to take to the lab. We test it. We see what's happening to you. Because at this point, we cannot give out the overall results until when the lab the results are out. I said to them, I said, it's okay. I'm ready.
Okay.
So like I gave them my sputum. They did gene experts, and it was positive. Yeah.
For TB.
For
Okay.
tuberculosis.
Let's just put a pause over there because, of course, this is like a summary. This is what I was feeling to health center. You know, took some drugs, did not help. Took a step further, and you, of course, eventually you got your diagnosis that you tested positive for TB.
For TB.
But before that, there's a lot that happened, right?
Yeah, sure.
At one point, you're feeling cold. You know, like you're cold and everybody's feeling hot. and people don't understand what is going on. And of course, you said at this point, it led to a bit of conflict in your workplace that later on led to loss of your job.
Yeah, at that time I was working. But now I used to complain of cold. When we used to go for the meeting, they used to put on the AC. Then I said, please, could you mind you switch off the AC? Because I'm feeling so much cold. Then they complained that there's too much hot here. Let's open the windows then. I said, no, I'm not feeling okay. Or this, do this. You just summarize the meeting, then I will forward what you've discussed to my email. Okay. They said, okay. Then at some point, then I asked for permission. I just go for a checkup, but even before, nothing nothing was going on, nothing was changing to my life. So I was feeling so much cold. When the sun, this sun of at noon time, not the best sun that I used to enjoy.
And at that time it's like hot.
It's usually hot.
Yeah.
Like, you see how the climate they are now?
Yes. It is too hot
That's
outside.
my best climate I used to enjoy.
Yeah.
You'll find me outside with my seat, just sleeping, enjoying the sun. But it's too hot. You find me sometime I feel I'm sweating, and my friend telling me, my friend, you're sweating a lot. And ukai pale kwa chini. No, I'm not feeling well.
Yes, you're sweating, but then again, you feel really good, like the sun on your skin.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Doctor, can we just go and get what he's saying? Because I think majority of the times when someone is not feeling well, of course, we usually like too hot, get some of those things, you know, off of me. But then again, he's bringing up that point of I am too cold almost all the time. What is that?
Wow. Thank you for that. And I think what Joshua has described is the course that most people go through when they are very sick. So in essence, tuberculosis, like we mentioned, many times begins, especially tuberculosis of the lungs. Remember, the main organ it affects are the lungs. We do have another type of tuberculosis where it may spread outside your lungs and affect other organs. But on the most part, in fact, about 80% of TB is usually within the lungs. So for most patients, they'll present with a persistent cough. You know, a cough that's not going away. And that cough may be associated with chest pain. Sometimes you may have sputum. You may be producing kikohozi or kohozi, which has blood. Okay, so blood stained sputum. So many times the first symptom is cough. And then you may also develop fever. So that feeling hotter than usual, you know. But then when you have fever, you have moments of feeling very hot, very cold. When people are hot, you're cold. When people are cold, you're feeling very hot and so forth. So that is the second most common symptom, fever. And then when you go to sleep, you have night sweats, drenching night sweats. You're in bed, but you're sweating so much that your sheets are wet. You could actually wring them. And I'm sure Joshua could explain that that is one of the commoner symptoms. And then the other one is unintended weight loss, whereby you're eating adequately, you have enough food, but your body is just not maintaining you. So you're just losing that weight and it's not planned. That's why we say unintended weight loss. So those are some of the most common and typical symptoms for tuberculosis. However, there are many others which could be associated with maybe the other organs that are affected. There are those who have TB of the abdomen, and they'll present with abdominal swelling, pain in the abdomen, and so forth. For children, they may also present with swelling in their neck, whereby the lymph nodes have swollen. And so you have different swellings all around your neck and the upper part of your chest.
Are they noticeable?
Yes. Okay. Many times those swellings are noticeable. Yeah. Okay. So those are, and then also for children, you may notice that for a child as they grow, month on month, they should add weight. But when a child has tuberculosis, what you will find is that that weight is not increasing and they are not thriving. Maybe they were already beginning to walk, now they do not want to walk. So in a sense, they are regressing in their milestones, okay? Yeah, so those are some of the symptoms and signs and symptoms that you may find with tuberculosis.
All right. Yeah. And then, of course, again, Dr. Irungu, you mentioned a case of course, the infection, right? And then before it then becomes a disease. So I'm just a bit concerned because, again, so this period, right? are you infectious? Are you not? Because you see, for Joshua, and of course, let's say many other people, you just go to work as normal because you think, maybe it's just a headache, it will go away. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's just kahoma, it will go away. But at this point, are you infectious? Are you not? So at what point do you then become, you know, are you able to then, you know, transmit or infect other people with the same? But before that, Elizabeth as well. So yours was a little bit further, 2011, right? Is where, you know, and in November, to be specific, is when you started feeling sick.
Yeah.
So how were you feeling before you decided to go to a hospital, or before you just decided to go get checked? What were you feeling?
Thank you so much, Winnie. What I felt at around that time was sickly, feeling sickly.
Yeah.
Feeling sick, not understanding exactly
What is happening?
what was happening. Symptoms like a cold and flu or malaria. Just feeling abnormally, feeling unwell. Then I was also coughing and night sweats. And there was also loss of weight. I lost weight, although it took time for me to realize that I was losing weight.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually took a friend to tell me that.
What is happening?
Why are you looking a bit different? You look like you're losing weight. And so I started observing myself, and I realized for sure. Yeah, my clothes were looking like they were not
anymore.
mine. It's like there was a negotiation. Am I wearing them or am I wearing?
Okay.
Yeah, so, but it took like up to like 3 weeks before I got to know, because I really tried medication. I started with painkillers. I realized painkillers were not working. I went to antibiotics. I just asked for the common antibiotics that at times we buy over the counter. And you know, you take for 5 days. So it takes like another 5 days dosage before you get to realize that it's not working. And time was still moving like that, and I was still coughing. The cough was getting actually more and more persistent. It was a kind of a very stubborn cough that seemed to be striking. It wasn't just like coughing. It was like striking and coughing continuously. Then now it goes down.
Okay.
So in the second week, I had to go for a lab test when I had just taken antibiotics, and even after that, I felt that they were not working. I did a lab test, and of course, you know, I went saying I'm feeling like malaria, you know, and I don't know how it came about that I was actually diagnosed with malaria out of that lab test.
Okay.
So I was given anti-malarial drugs for 3 days. So when I started that night, the next day I woke up with a pain, a different pain, just above my stomach. So I consulted a friend nurse. I called her, and she asked me to go for a checkup. After the checkup, she gave me an injection, and I went back home. But after some time, I used to improve, just a slight improvement, and I would still go back to the same. So I still called her and told her I wasn't well yet. She asked me to go back and see her. So when I saw her again, she told me, you know what, Elizabeth? I wouldn't want to treat my patients twice, and I normally don't. And so she told me, now what you do, if you're not well, you have to go for an x-ray.
Okay.
And I started getting worried, an x-ray, how fast? So she gave me a prescription to a specialist for x-ray. And I just went and kept it in the house. And then the next day I went to a district hospital the next day, because I realized this seems to be like a respiratory something. So I think I better go to a district hospital that I had normally deals with respiratory chest issues. So I went there, and amazingly, it was also not discovered. So I was given just a stronger original antibiotic to take for another 5 days.
Okay.
So by the end of that now, it had been quite a long time. I was still coughing, still sickly. So after which I just took the X-ray prescription.
Eventually, just decided, you know what? Let me just go and get get the right.
By then
the right
it had gotten serious. I had a very bad pain when I was going. As I was breathing, it was hard to take a full breath. So I had a pain somewhere in between my ribs.
Okay.
So I was just longing, when will I get there? And it was in the afternoon. By the time I went and queued for the X-ray, and by the time I was done, it was in that test that I was discovered
that you had TB.
That I had a TB infection.
Okay.
That was around 5 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah.
So I had to wait for the next day for the government hospital hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like such a long time. I said, I'm not going to sleep this night. I'll just sit
and
waiting for the morning, because it had gotten a bit
the pain was too much for you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You also mentioned something that you had sharp pain in your stomach, right? And Dr. Lorraine, of course, you mentioned that some people, again, depending on where it is, there's some people who might experience the pain, right? But I'm a bit curious to understand, and especially for the cough, like what exactly happens to the lungs that then someone experiences, you know, difficulty, for example, you know, in breathing, like she was saying, there's a lot of pain. Like what changes happen, you know, in the lungs that bring about, excuse me, you know, cases of I can't breathe very well, there's a lot of pain and all that. But before that, remember the question about the active period between the you know, when you have the infection before it then proceeds to being a disease. You want to take that, Dr. Irungu?
Oh, okay. So what basically happens is that an individual who has tuberculosis, and as Lorraine mentioned, is that tuberculosis, about most of the patients we see with tuberculosis get tuberculosis of the lungs.
Okay. And
I believe that's why you display that right behind me. And the problem with that is that every time you expire, you know, air comes out from your lungs, whether you're singing, coughing, anything that produces the droplets, takes out the TB in you, remains suspended in air, someone else breathes it in. So when they breathe it in, they get what is called infection. Now, the infection is not really a problem if your immunity is okay and you're able to contain the infection, which the majority of us do.
Okay.
But for some reason, a few individuals do not contain that. Now, so when you develop the disease, from progression from infection to disease is when you're able to spread it. So you have the disease in you, so when you cough, as I talk to you, as I sing, as I sneeze, any kind of thing that produces forceful air from the lungs, produces those droplets that remain suspended in air. So, God forbid, if I had TB today and God forbid I coughed here, seriously, and I was laughing or singing or something like that, TB will remain suspended in air. And probably your next presenter.
Come in and breathe in, of course.
Who intentionally did not intend to interview us. May get that. So up to 8 hours.
8 hours, wow, that's
up
a
to
long
8 hours.
time, yes.
So that's why we advocate for things like ventilation. If you do live in a ventilated area and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of underlying issues that really control TB. How is your immune status? And the immune status is, you know, it's developed out of a number of factors. How do you eat? Do you have enough food? Is it a balanced diet? Not chipo or sausages or my gonga kwa street.
And
but is
those
it
like the tasty ones, the good ones that we like the most?
Those are fantastic.
Yes.
But again, what do you really eat?
Okay.
How do you live where you live? How many people live in that household that you live? Unfortunately, for most Kenyans, they're not able to have decent housing. They live in small shacks. Quite a number of people who was a mjengo. Like 10 guys come to the city, they're trying to hustle a life for their families at home, live in a small, 10 guys in a small house. And one of them is coughing. So most likely, most of those individuals are going to get infected. And a number of other things conspire for you to have tuberculosis. So the point at which you have TB within your lungs, and you have these things of singing, coughing, and kind of thing, are what aerosolize the bacteria, the TB germ. Remains suspended in air, and that's when you're infectious. So it varies from individual to individual. Children really are not very infectious. As you grow older, you're able to cough and produce more TB germs in the air. the more TB germs you have, because again, two guys can have TB disease, but one have more TB germs in their lungs and the other does not. So the guy who has more TB germs within their lungs is able to produce more and infect more people.
Okay.
And just to give you an example, the standard, the basic TB patient that we see in our country can infect up to 15 individuals within a year.
Oh, wow.
Any guy who is just walking around with TB, whether it's diagnosed or not, as long as they're not in treatment and their TB germs are remaining within the lungs, is able to infect another 15 guys within an year's period. If you miss that, another year, another 15 guys.
Yeah.
As it gets worse and the TB gets worse, so it gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of situation that we see, and that's when an individual is most infectious. So for you to develop TB disease, largely depends on your immunity. On your immunity. And the individuals who have low immunity compared to the general population. So one, children are, don't have very good immunity against tuberculosis based on what our design and how we are as humans. So extremes of age, very young children, very old adults.
Population, okay.
Anything that brings immunity down is also responsible to predispose you to tuberculosis. So either you have a condition like HIV, which reduces immunity, diabetes, if you have been exposed to things like silicone, not a lot of people have that, but those are some of the guys whose immunity within the lungs is very much lowered. Or you're probably on anti-cancer treatment, which basically brings them, anything that brings immunity down predisposes you to tuberculosis. And one of the things that we have seen over time is that people say that this guy has TB because he has HIV.
For a very long time, actually.
Yeah, for a very long time.
For a very long
that
time,
is not true. There's some truth in it, but that's not the exact truth. Is that the HIV, the AIDS brought your immunity down, not the virus itself. Because we have a lot of patients who have it that don't have TB. But basically, it's the factor that this infection brought your immunity down. So most of our TB patients, majority, over 80–90%, do not have HIV. And that is the honest truth that we see in this country. So that's one thing that I think we should message to Kenyans, because it brings a lot of stigma to our people.
And then, of course, like we said earlier on, there are like different types, you know, of TB. But which one is like the most common in the country, Dr. Lorraine? Very quickly before we go on a break.
Okay, thank you for that question. So to begin with, we can classify TB in two ways. The first way, which we mentioned earlier, is TB of the lungs, pulmonary TB. That is TB of the lungs, and that's the most common. And then there's TB that has spread beyond your lungs, going to other organs. Maybe one thing we should mention, TB can affect every and any single organ in you, except your teeth and your hair. Okay? Yes, and sometimes even your nails. So TB can affect any organ in your body, really. And so TB in the lungs is the most common, and it's called pulmonary TB. We have TB outside the lungs, which is extra pulmonary. Then we have another way of classifying tuberculosis, which is based on how complicated, so to speak, TB is. So we have what we call drug-sensitive TB. This is the one that is not complicated at all. On the most part, can be treated by the common antibiotics we use for tuberculosis. And the treatment course is about 6 months. And many times a patient will respond and even get cured after being treated for drug-sensitive TB. That's the most common type of TB that most Kenyans will have. Then we have the other type, which is complicated. For lack of a better word, it's complicated tuberculosis, and that is drug-resistant tuberculosis. This is the kind of tuberculosis where the bacteria that you have in you is no longer responding to the drugs, the antibiotics we use for treatment of tuberculosis. And so what happens, because this bacteria is resistant, when you start taking the normal TB drugs that any patient would be given, you don't get better. That is drug-resistant tuberculosis. Most of the time being treated for a long period of time, even up to 1 year.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then there's another called multi-drug resistant TB.
That is the same
Which
one.
is, right?
That is the same one. So
Okay.
drug-resistant tuberculosis can also be classified
Oh,
further.
it's
Yes.
like
Yes.
1A, 1B,
Exactly.
1C.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Let's take a
Yeah.
break.
So
but of course,
multi-drug is
yeah,
part of the
It's part of the drug
drug-resistant.
resistant.
Yes.
It's like drug resistant, then 1A.
Exactly.
Multi-drug.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a break. But of course, when we come back, that would want to understand. So then how do you get to that point of developing, drug resistant TB? And then what does treatment look like? Because like I said, takes a longer time. All right, so let's take that break. But of course, we also want to understand from you, have you ever been infected with TB? How was your experience? Do you want to share? Feel free to do so. The numbers are down on your screen. Feel free to call in any time. Or if you have any question as far as TB is concerned, again, feel free to either interact with us on our socials or give us a call. And of course, the experts are here to pick your call and of course answer all your questions. But for now, let's take a break. See you shortly. This is Your World.
This place is huge. We'll never find them.
We will find them. I know they're here. Don't answer.
It's Cardenas.
Don't answer it. Frank said I was to come alone. If he sees you, we'll have a big problem.
We'll have a bigger problem if we don't find them.
I should have come alone. Don't answer it. Talking to you disgusts me. Why don't we just end this? Let Kata go. You can kill me if you want to, but we end this right here.
Shh, shut up.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
When I'm taking control, I be killing them. Where to me?
You got the African sauce, baby.
These streets we banded. Baby, boo, I run the city. Stim, zip under. Give them another get under.
Nisho, ni wapi uliniona? Hi, what's up, beautiful people? This is your girl Nadia Mukami, aka the African pop star. Then you're watching Kwetu Mix ndani ya NTV. Keep it locked, straight up.
Kama kawaii. Hatuna maneno kwetu. Tunapendana kikwetu.
Maziwa kamili asili ya Kenya.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. The show is Your World, and today it's all about TB or tuberculosis because, like we said earlier on, every 24th day of March, of course, the world celebrates World TB Day, and of course, this will happen tomorrow. So, of course, as we prepare for the same, of course, it's important for us to really understand what TB is all about and what we need to do to make sure that then we bring out the numbers because, like we said earlier on when we started, of course, we saw an increase in the number of TB cases. That is in 2021. And, of course, Dr. Irungu will just throw this to you. Why? Because in 2020, it's like we were doing very well, you know, the numbers dipped. But then in 2021, we started, you know, noticing a bit of increase. Is it COVID, you know, interference that brought about?
Yeah, so COVID has not been very nice to the TB community.
True. Sure.
And I'm sure the patients out there can speak for themselves. In 2019, we had around 86,000 TB cases that we diagnosed and put on treatment with susceptible TB. However, when COVID came in 2020, with all the disruptions, I don't need to go with that, our numbers dipped to 72,000. So that means from 86 to 72, we missed about 16,000. Is it? 14 or 16? Yeah, 14. However, in 2021, some interim numbers, which are not yet final, shows that we could have a slight increase because the system has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. So what happened is that when COVID came, the health disruption had a lot of implications in the TB control. And remember, TB is a disease that we have had for
a very long time.
A very long, million of years,
very
depending on statistics.
Yes.
Before Jesus, TB was there. TB is not going away. But there's a lot of effort and money that has gone into TB control in this country and globally generally. And TB, as Dr. Lorraine mentioned, is one of the diseases that plagues this country. We are one of the 30 high burden countries. It's not something I feel proud talking about. Out of the 200 and over 200, Kenya is one of the high TB burden. So TB, HIV, and we're a priority country for drug-resistant tuberculosis. So what happened in 2020, the patients who are on treatment, who are being followed up in our TB clinics and chest clinics and the other departments are being followed up, had to interrupt treatment at some point. And the problem with interrupting treatment, you create more problems.
True.
You have more complications, you can develop drug-resistant tuberculosis, you can develop more germs so that you are able to infect more other individuals, which is a big problem. And you infect another individual, that's another problem. As you can remember, they infect other 15 people, and the other another 15. So over time, it becomes a big problem. There are those individuals who are on treatment. We are following them up nicely. When COVID came, there were lockdowns. Everyone was scared of hospitals. You couldn't go back to the hospitals. That's a big problem. And these individuals whom we did not diagnose, again, are a big problem because they infect you and me. Me and the other Kenyans are watching this station right now. So that's a big problem for us because that means we went back miles. Actually, I think we're back to around 2015, pre-2015 era. So all the efforts that we did in those number of years it probably went to waste, if I was to call it that way. And then it is projected that in the next 4 or 5 years, more individuals are going to die from tuberculosis, which is very unfortunate. So today, as we speak, yesterday, 12 people died in Kenya from TB. The day before that, 12. Today, there'll be another 12, and tomorrow there'll be another 12. That's a lot of
lives lost.
Lives lost. In matatu mzima. That's a whole mat. Just, you know, we report road traffic accidents every other day when they happen. 1 or 2 people, but it's an entire matatu. And that's going to increase. It probably be 1.5 matatus or 2, depending on what we do now. And we are working on how we control
we need
that.
to prevent the same because
TB is a disease that is preventable
and treatable.
And it's cure. You can cure tuberculosis without any issues. We don't have. I like that these guys are here.
Exactly. I was about to say that.
And I'm glad they are here. But then, unfortunately, about 10% of the guys they got infected together or developed the disease together are not there anymore. That's the unfortunate bit of tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is...
And we can't, yeah, it's just sad. We can't really have more lives lost again to TB,
True.
which, like you said, is preventable, treatable, and curable, you know, at the same time. But let's go back to Joshua. So Joshua, November 2017 is when you began feeling, you know, sick, you know, here and there. But until July 2018, that is when you were diagnosed with TB.
Yeah, sure.
That is like a lot of months. What
Yeah,
was
yeah,
happening? Sure. Did the disease, you know, like become worse? What was happening during this month?
Those months, it wasn't quite like enjoyable months.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to struggle and fighting, trying to know what's happening. Like one thing, like I didn't understand is that how comes why is it that I'm eating? Then my weight
You're
is
losing
still
weight.
going down. I remember there's a show that I used to put on. Ilikuwa like mshipi nilikuwa nafunga nyuma.
Okay.
Yeah. Then right now it can't fit me anymore. Small.
Became like a negotiation, like
yeah.
It
was negotiable. So like what made me like to go through that time. I was still believing the over-counter drugs.
Okay. Does this, and again, of course, Dr. Lorraine will answer this, does this then make the situation worse? Because from what Joshua and Elizabeth are saying is, I just went, got over-the-counter medication, you know, took them, sometimes helped, sometimes did not help, but, you know, so does this then contribute to a case of drug resistance TB? But before that, so finally, you were diagnosed with tuberculosis, right?
Yeah.
What was your reaction? What were your emotions once the doctor tells you, listen, you have TB? Because there's a lot of cases of stigma and misreporting and misconceptions surrounding TB. That sometimes when someone tells you you have TB, of course, you know, there's a certain way that you feel. Yeah, but for you, how did you feel when the doctor says, yeah, tested positive?
Thank you. The feeling that I had, what came in my mind is that first, I can't say I was excited, but I was a little bit happy. Because
like finally you know what is going on.
Because I was eager to know what's happening to me. But when the results were out and I was told you have TB, so when we will start your medication right now, today, but the moment you start taking medication, you'll be cured completely. As long as you're going to take medication in the right way at the right time and don't miss a single day. I told the madam, I'm ready.
Did you know about TB in terms of how long you would need to be on medication, what you would need to do? Like, did you know about TB before this?
You
had the information?
Yeah, I had a little information. And my dad had also advised me to go for the test for tuberculosis, specifically tuberculosis.
Why?
Because he was wondering at night, I'm coughing, severe coughing. Then when I wake up, you find that my beddings, they're so wet. Even when the sweat is dry, you could find the bedding are hard or rough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like my dad had informed me to go and just go do this and this and this. And don't run away. Yeah, this is a journey, this is a fight that you have to win. Yeah.
Okay. And Elizabeth, did you have like the same reaction? Because you were told to go for an X-ray. Took a bit of time. Eventually, you were like, you know what, fine, let's just go, right? You went, and of course, you also tested positive for the same, right? For tuberculosis. How was it for you receiving the news?
Thanks so much again, Winnie. When I received the news, I didn't get very much shocked. I think because I didn't have a lot of information of what it meant to be infected with TB. All I knew was that there was going to be a long duration, that is 6 months
of treatment,
of taking medication. Apart from that, I didn't know much. I didn't know how serious it was, how bad it can get with the infection. I didn't know, so I took it lightly. And my main interest at that time was, can I start medication at least because of the complication I had breathing in and out. So I just wanted to start with the medication. But yeah, the reception of the news didn't really affect me much. Yeah.
Okay. All right, because there's one person I was talking to, and she was saying it did not go well with her, you know, given the stigma and of course what she had had before about tuberculosis. So she was like, it was the worst day of my life, you know, recounting how she was told that you have TB. All right, so you began medication immediately.
Yeah.
Were you able to adhere for the 6 months, or was it like, got to a point where you started feeling a little bit better and you decided, you know what, see, I can maybe pause, maybe I can stop. How was the journey for you for the entire 6 months?
The journey was not easy.
Yeah.
Taking continuous medication is not an easy thing.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, it took a lot of, you know, encouraging myself to continue taking, and motivation and encouragement from family members and friends who got to know. Yeah, but then I didn't get to tell it to so many people, and I wasn't sick, very sick in such a way that people could tell. So yeah, not many people got got to know what was happening. And I think that's how at that time I wasn't even stigmatized. And within like a month I was back, like very strong, doing things normally. No one was able to tell anything happening.
Okay.
So I had just to follow the medication.
All right.
The challenge is that it's got to be
very
the same time.
Yes.
If it's 8 in the morning, it's got to
Make
be
sure you take
8.
that every single day at 8.
Yeah, every single day.
Okay.
I followed through.
You did?
Yes.
That is
I
really,
thank
really
God.
good. Okay. So, Dr. Lorraine, in terms of then, you know, the whole aspect of diagnosis. Oh, you want to chime? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to say something. Maybe the little bit of happiness of like, you know, when you've been going through a hard time.
Yes.
It's like when you're feeling thirsty. Then when you meet water, you know, I'm going to quench my queue. So like when that thing happened, so like I was told like after 2 weeks, after taking the medication right away, the cough will automatically stop, or it will be gradual, like just cough once. Then it wasn't that persisting. Yeah.
As it was before.
So, than it was before.
And I can understand the relief really, because going through something for all this months, like you
for
said,
all those
started in
months.
November and then in July is when you get a proper diagnosis. I can understand the relief because now you know there's hope, because once you put on treatment, of course, there's hope that you will get better after the 6 months. But then, Dr. Lorraine, so the whole process of diagnosis, what does it look like?
Okay, so thank you for that question. So to begin with, diagnosis of tuberculosis is not very difficult, so long as your healthcare worker or you as a patient, first of all, have that suspicion that you probably have tuberculosis. So in terms of diagnosis, we have a test whereby a patient will give their sputum, and that sputum is subjected to a test known as a gene expert test. So this diagnosis can be done at any public health facility for free, and it's also available also in private facilities, but for a cost. So with that in mind, diagnosis therefore is possible and readily available, and also it's free of charge within the public health facilities.
Has it always been the case?
Yes,
Like
for a long time.
free,
yes, for a very long time, for quite a number of years, possibly over 15 years, the Ministry of Health through the National TB Program has worked very hard to ensure that access to diagnostics is made available for patients. And so one of the things that the Ministry of Health has done is to partner with various partners to ensure that patients can actually access the test for free within public health facilities. So that is the most sensitive test at this time. We have other new diagnostics that are coming through, but they mostly require getting a sputum sample out and that sample being subjected to a test. There are other tests that may also be done. For example, for Elizabeth, she had a chest X-ray done. That is also another extra test that can be done for a patient who may have tuberculosis. Yes.
What difference are you looking at, especially for the X-ray, in terms of just understanding what is going on? Like, what informs you that, hey, this one could be a case of TB?
Okay.
Yeah.
So a chest X-ray really is imaging of what your lung tissue looks like. So when we conduct a chest X-ray, we want to see, does your lung tissue look normal? Does it have a lot of air getting in, and therefore On a chest x-ray, you'll see a lot of black. Yes, on a normal chest x-ray where the lungs have enough air. Okay. When tuberculosis starts damaging your lung tissue, what happens is pieces or parts of your lungs become, they start changing and they start becoming whiter rather than the black that shows that there's a lot of air. Yeah. So really, when a clinician, a healthcare worker or a doctor requests for a chest x-ray, what really they want to see is if your lung tissue looks like there's some damage or there are some areas of that lung tissue that has been affected. And that's because diseases that affect the lungs usually cause some changes, some areas of fibrosis, you know, toughness within your lung tissue that really shouldn't be there. Okay. So that really is what we are looking for when we conduct a chest x-ray.
Okay, and then Dr. Ringo, as far as then the index of suspicion, because what Elizabeth said earlier on is, of course, she was feeling sickly, right? Went to a hospital, you know, explained her symptoms, and eventually she was given medication. Like, you were diagnosed with malaria, okay?
Yeah, at a lab test.
Oh, you did a lab test, and the lab test showed malaria, but it was not able to pick tuberculosis. Do we see a lot of cases of then misdiagnosis or late diagnosis?
Yes, indeed we do. One of the problems with tuberculosis is that it presents the same as a number of other respiratory issues. So if you have a bacterial pneumonia, especially things like the cough, the chest pain may tend to be the same. And for a long time, the way people have thought about tuberculosis is that tuberculosis is a chronic disease. Chronic means that it's a disease that has been there for long. No one, so if you present today with a cough, and probably some weight loss and kind of thing, the first thing you're probably going to be treated for is a pneumonia, probably an upper respiratory tract infection, getting some few antibiotics for like some few days, like they did. And no one thinks about tuberculosis at that point. No one thinks about, hey, you know, let's do a gene expert at this point, let's diagnose this at this point. And that's one of the biggest problems. Now, children, and I will be very specific about children. Children who have tuberculosis do not have the same history like they did. That beautiful history that is very clear-cut, cough, weight loss, night sweats. Children don't have that. And unless the clinician is very, very keen, you're going to miss it. Because in children, a kid will just stop playing, they're just down. As Dr. mentioned, they are not gaining weight. If you look at the mother-child booklet, ile kitabu ya mama, ile clinic.
The ones that you give it.
Ile tunapewa clinic, the purple one, eh? So if you look at the weight of the kid, the way the curve goes, there's a norm. If you look at that booklet, there's weight, I think it's white. It's white. You're supposed to be within that range. So if you start going down, then they, you know, minus something up to -3. So the kid is not gaining weight as they're supposed to. They're not playing well. They may have the fever. Children may not necessarily cough. And that's one thing that is very different from in children that is not in the adults. Because one, children tend not to have a lot of TB within their lungs. They tend to have it outside the extrapulmonary TB that Dr. Lorraine talked about. So in children, on X-ray, what we see is a lot of lymph nodes. What in my culture we call ngai. Ngai are called lymph nodes. I don't know what other communities call them. But there are lymph nodes within the lungs. And other features that you see there in the lungs. And that's what you see typically in children. And in children, most of them you'll see that they're always in the clinic. This kid is always sick, is always in the facility. This kid is not gaining weight, so they put them in the nutrition program where they go and put on those food supplements and those other interventions that we have. But this kid is not really kidogo, but not really there. That's one of the biggest problems we have to be in children. And the other thing about children, most of our lab tests will not be positive in children because children only need a very few TB germs to cause disease as opposed to you and me. So they only need very few, and there's always what called a limit of detection. There's the limit to what the human eye can see. So if you take sputum from a kid, you put it in a microscope, there may be very few bacilli, you may miss them. If you take it to gene expert, because there are very few, because again, the gene expert depends on a number of things. So the more bacilli you have, the more germs you have,
easier.
the easier it is to detect. But for children, they tend not to have the same. So they have very few bacilli. So even the most complicated test that we have, the best that we have, may not really diagnose TB in children. So if the doctor that is seeing this child is not really thinking about TB, you're going to miss it. And I have seen it in a number of friends whose children have been diagnosed with TB, where I actually probably missed it initially, but then upon review, then you get smarter by the day. So that's one of the biggest problems that we have with TB. The other thing is that I must say is that a negative lab test for tuberculosis does not rule out tuberculosis. The commonest sample that we collect, or specimen we collect for tuberculosis, is sputum. That means if I'm collecting sputum, you're looking for TB within my lungs. But as Dr. Lorraine mentioned, TB affects every bit of you except your hair, your nails, and the teeth, and the white part, not the live part. The live part can be affected because there is a blood part. So those are the only parts that don't get tuberculosis. So if, for example, I have TB in my brain, and I give you sputum, you're not going to find anything.
You're not going to find, yes.
If you have TB affecting my knee or my spine or anything, causing paralysis, like I've seen, unfortunately, let me just give this story. An uncle of mine just recently got diagnosed with tuberculosis. And one of the biggest discussions we had is that this guy, they thought he had tuberculosis. He had the typical symptoms, the weight loss, the cough, not the cough, the weight loss, the night sweats. This guy is just sickly. They thought it was tuberculosis, but then the sputum was negative. And that is a patient who is still in hospital as we speak right now. And the biggest discussion we had with some of the clinicians there was that, no, this is not tuberculosis because the tests are negative. But the TB is in the spine. The guy cannot walk. He's paralyzed from the limbs all the way down. Because what tuberculosis can do to you. And that's one of the problems that we're really grappling with, that people believe that you must have a positive test for you to have disease, which is not the case. Yes. So unless the clinician, really our doctors are really thinking about tuberculosis, it is better to give the patient a fighting chance, because if someone is paralyzed, as we were seeing in one of the recent documentaries, being paralyzed is seriously life complicating issues that we have.
So the index of, so is it more on awareness than on healthcare workers to just, even if it's not,
it's awareness. It's awareness on all levels.
Right.
The healthcare worker must think about it. So you could also go and, as a patient, think, hey, daktari, see, inaweza kuwa ni TB. Inaweza kuwa ni TB, just that nudge that someone is thinking about it. So as they work, they do the investigation. TB is part of the plan. That even a negative test, there are other modalities of diagnosis that we have. There's just X-ray. If TB is affecting your knee,
of course you want
but then an X-ray or an MRI or a CT scan may help in the diagnosis.
All right. So Elizabeth and Joshua, of course, let's just get to understand. So during this period when you were introduced to medication, right? There may be changes that you had to make just to make sure that then, it's somewhat easier for you to take medication, because 6 months is such a long time to be on medication every single day. So are there changes that you had to make? Let's start with you, Joshua, in terms of just to help you adhere to the medication.
Oh, there was, because I was informed if I have an urgent travel, I had to inform my doctor. If I'm going to overstay, to give me extra drugs, to make sure there's no single day that I'm going to miss the drugs. Then there was a reminder. I was put on a reminder. I used to take my drugs at around 9
in the morning.
In the at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. So 15 minutes too, I used to receive a message, a reminder. Hi Joshua, 15 minutes you are going to take your medication. Make sure you have eaten, because the drugs are so strong. If it happens that you take a medication, if you have not taken anything, you might feel a weak or even start vomiting. You can vomit them. But I was told, I was advised when you vomit the medication, you'll have to take it wash it, then make sure you take it, because the moment you have vomited the medicine, that's a day out. You have not taken any drug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And that will give a chance for the bacteria to grow.
Yeah.
Then because the moment you take the medication of that day, you're suppressing the bacteria. You're diminishing it not to grow, you're not giving it chance to develop. Yeah, so I was put on a reminder, a call, and I also informed my friend at this time, my friend, if I've gone somewhere, maybe I've not carried my drug, make sure before 9 we are back home. So like he used to remind me, if he's not near me, he used to remind me, hello, Joshua, have you taken your medication? I'm like, oh, naenda home saizi, I'm going to take them.
Yeah. That's really, really good. You know, the right kind of support.
Yes.
I had to do because I was somehow held up, and I had to get somebody to be reminding me. You know, the moment your mind is piled up with things, you tend to forget. Then that time I find I'm not coughing. My life is back to normal. So like you can say, today I'm not coughing. So if I skip today, let's do tomorrow. Or maybe you can say, I will recover. No, the moment you say that you're going to recover, you're giving that chance, that bacteria will grow, and maybe the tuberculosis will resist the kind of medication that you're taking. Now you'll have to be given a different medication, and that will be a cost to another level, because you find that this medication drugs are so much expensive. So I was advised to make sure this drug that will be given, it's fighting the infection that you have now. So make sure the moment you're taking them, don't skip a single day, don't skip a single hour. So if you take them the right way, you'll also you're also going to help us to cut the costs of the drugs.
True. It's true.
So like my doctor, Dr. Millicent, she informed me that. So and I said, oh wow, I'm going to be very much cautious about this thing, because I really wanted to end this thing.
And given what you were saying earlier on, as far as you, like for several months you did not know what was happening, you know, just losing weight, you're in pain here and there. So really, once you have the medication, you had no choice.
Sure. You have
but
no
stick
choice,
to the medication and just make sure that you get better. So after how long then did you start feeling, you know, better, noticing some bit of change here and there?
After 2 weeks.
After 2 weeks.
2 weeks to a month.
Okay.
2 weeks to 1 month. My appetite was coming back. I used to get to eat very well. The coughing stopped, night sweat stopped, chest pain stopped. Like literally everything just stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Your weight?
Your
which
weight,
is the biggest issue?
I began gaining. I had around 43.
You went down to 43?
43, yeah. I still remember, I usually go for my file and hoping I just compare where I am and where I was and where I am right now. Because like even today, before I report to work, I usually stand on that weighing machine and see, last week did I add any grams? Like, even if it's one, it's an achievement.
It's an achievement, yes. It really is.
Like, every day I usually do that. And I said there's a point that I want to get to. Because that time before I had TB, I had around 50, 55. Then imagine from 55 to around 43.
Yeah, I mean to 43,
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight loss.
That's a lot of weight loss. Yeah, so that's why you find that like every day today, I usually go for that machine. I see, I'm adding, I'm doing better each now and then. And I'm usually happy about it.
I can see the happiness in it. Like you all of a sudden just light up, you know, when you're talking about it. Okay, so we need to take a break. Of course, when we come back, I'll also need to hear Elizabeth's story as far as the journey. After how long did you start noticing changes, and how are you doing right now? But we'll also talk about the drug-resistant TB, right? We cannot miss that. Okay, so if you have any other question in relation to the same, and that is on tuberculosis, you want to call in, you have a question, feel free to do so. The numbers are down on your screen. Or if you want to interact with us on our social media platforms, again, feel free to do so. But by the end of the day, let's have a better understanding as far as tuberculosis and for some of the ways that we can prevent the infection, you know, from getting to a point of disease. But even the disease, you know, make sure that, again, get treatment and cure at the same time. All right, so we'll see you after the short break. Stay with us. This is Your World. I am trying to think 43, huh?
Are we off air?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
as Dr. Funiken Mamakai hosts unscripted true life relationship experiences on reality TV show Kupatana. Nia, Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. and Kupatana every Tuesday and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Terms and conditions apply.
Come view our vast array of high-quality projects nestled in the upcoming controlled Tattoo City, ranging from 1, 2, 3 and 4-bedroom apartments, offering an ultra-modern, all-inclusive lifestyle for all. See you there.
Presenting the Mama Fuas. Meet Toss Blue, the fighter. Usistruggle na madoa. Toss Blue the fighter anatandika madoa raundi moja ndio usipambane nazo. There's a toss for every laundry need. Toss ya tosha.
This place is huge. We'll never find them.
We will find them. I know they're here. Don't answer.
It's Cardenas.
Don't answer it. Frank said I was to come alone. If he sees you, we'll have a big problem.
We'll have a bigger problem if we don't find them.
I should have come alone. Don't answer it. Talking to you disgusts me. Why don't we just end this? Let Kata go. You can kill me if you want to, but we end this right here.
Shh, shut up.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Alfresh, maziwa kamili, asili ya Kenya.
All right, welcome back. The last phase of the show. Time really flies. But again, it is very important for us to talk about tuberculosis because, like we said, of course, tomorrow the world will be celebrating World TB Day. And of course, it is very important for all of us to understand why this is very important and what we can do to prevent, you know, the cases as far as the increasing numbers of TB, especially here in the country. So can we just quickly, Elizabeth, get to understand, so fine, you were on medication, you know, you really adhered to the medication, like you said, because you just wanted to feel better, right? So in terms of then your diet, maybe exercise here and there, what are some of the things that you had to do even as you take medication, just to make sure that helps you to recover well?
I just encouraged myself, and I didn't do much because amazingly I took it so lightly. I think it was just with God's help that I went through it so easily, like it wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, so, but now I had to be remembering, if in case I'm traveling or wherever I'm going out, and I'll need to be taking my medication anytime before I get back to the house. I had to carry
your medication.
Yeah, I had to carry. Then I had to find some water, or I'm carrying water. I just get a place and take my medication.
Okay.
Yeah, or sometimes I would sit in a restaurant, and you know, at that time you have to do it like you're hiding. Like you look around and take your medication, you know. Yeah, those things. But then I didn't adjust like so much, but now there was that part of the visiting of the health center to collect more medicine, because it used to be weekly. Yeah, it's normally weekly. Yeah, it's 10 years back now.
Yeah.
So so that those visits sometimes they can get boring. Even like they really interrupt your normal schedule. So you have to create time to go collect medication and get back. That was just to be just you just give it that day and you relax.
Yeah.
And that's how it went with me. So
What about like
God just gave me strength. And peace. At some point, even the pharmacist asked me, "Do you normally collect your medicine, or you come collecting for someone?" Because I didn't look like it. Yeah, she actually asked me if it was my own medication.
Because you saw a lot of improvements in a short period of time.
Yeah, and the attitude. I think the attitude helps
It's
a lot.
very
Doctors, you would tell us that.
Yes.
Yeah, my attitude was really up.
Yeah. I like that. Okay, what about like visitations? Did you somewhat had to limit the number of people who come to you, or even no person to come to you, maybe visit you at all? Or maybe if they did, come visit you, what are some of the things that, you had to do just to make sure that you also protect them, from being infected?
Yeah, I wasn't very social per se, so I didn't have people like visiting frequently. But also, I maintained a distance when we are like seated in a room. Yeah, I had to keep that distance. I think normally it's the patient who feels that concern
for other people.
Yeah, for other people. Yeah, sometimes more than them what they may think, because that's just they have that feeling. They have they know, you are infected, but they also they don't have details. So they're also not very much afraid. It's not like COVID, the way people are like, COVID,
stay away.
Yeah.
Okay. But for you, Joshua, was it the same case as far as maybe visitations, maybe not allowing people to come see you, or even if they do, open windows, the whole thing that we usually told?
Yeah, it was the same case. Because when somebody would visit me, I'll make sure the door is wide open and the windows are open. Then we didn't sit like sister and brother, like together. Then I'll make sure when I'm talking, we are not direct to him, like we are parallel. Because when I talk, the bacteria, the germs, they just go the other direction, not to him direct.
Okay. All right. At some point, maybe wear a mask, or because I think for majority of us, it's this story of mask. It actually came with COVID.
Yeah, actually came with COVID,
right?
Because at that time, we had no idea whether COVID is coming.
I mean,
we were just living the simple life.
Just anyway, what you were told is just make sure protect the other person. From the infection. All right then. So when it comes to the treatment, Dr. Rungo, again, 6 months. And I'm pretty sure you get these questions a lot. Why 6 months? Like, can we have like take 2 in the morning, in the evening, and then you take it for 3 months? Why the 6-month period?
Yeah. So so one thing about the TB germ, it's how you treat bacterial infections is a function of how fast the bacteria can multiply. So the faster the bacteria multiplies, the easier or the shorter the duration of treatment. Our TB germ, unfortunately, is very lazy, but is a survivor. That bug has been there for millennia. That thing, we have tried hitting it, it's like the ultimate warrior. And we are still trying to fight it. So the TB germ divides very slowly. And the fact that it divides very slowly, if you're going to treat for a short duration of time, what you're going to do, you're going to reduce those TB germs that are dividing very fast. I mentioned earlier about TB infection. TB infection is basically where your body is able to contain the infection, and those TB bacilli divide very slowly. Just for survival, or they can go into hibernation. Most Kenyans understand hibernation. So for you, those that multiply very fast are easier to treat. So what happens if I give you treatment for 2 weeks or 1 week, like we do for most pneumonias or most infections, you'll only clear most of those fast dividing bacilli, but you'll not clear them. The point is to cure. And cure means that you clear everything. If there is Al-Shabaab in your lungs, you want to get it out to the very last one. That is the whole point of TB treatment. So if you just do shoddy course of treatment, 2 weeks, you're going to clear the most of it, and you know you look good. This guy is feeling nice. Oh, in the media,
I mean, what they were saying is like, I went to clinic, nobody.
Nice. So they probably didn't understand. Within 2 weeks, they were feeling very good. The cough is gone, the night sweats are gone, the feeling bad is gone. But then, why do you have to take for another 5 months? It's to clear these bacilli that are very dormant, to avoid what we call relapses. Relapses is where you have had TB before, then you get it again. So when you get it again, could be one of two things. You got a new infection, someone else exposed you, you got infected and developed the disease, or the bacilli that you had initially, those TB germs that you had initially, have now zimepata nguvu, zimekula ugali, zimejenga. So they come back to cause the disease. That is what you don't want. Because the problem that when that happens, especially when you have been treated before, they have known the arsenal that you have, the antibiotics that you have. So they tend to come back and are resistant to stronger
to the medication.
If they don't kill you, they make you
stronger.
They make you stronger. So you become resistant to this first-line treatment, which is the best TB medicines that we have. So it means we have to go to a longer course of treatment for a resistant TB, and that's a whole different issue that is a problem in Kenya. Well, the numbers may seem small, the burden, financial, humanitarian, all those kind of things are significant. Because one, you have to take longer treatment. Those medicines cost a fortune. And for NTPs, you could direct that money to preventing these things from getting there. So it is really expensive. It has severe consequences on the patient because for the most part, it diagnosed late. That this guy is not responding to, thank God they treated. So in a number of our patients, you're treating for susceptible TB, they're not responding. That's when we diagnose the resistant TB, and it's a really nasty bug. It's a bug that you do not want even on your waist anymore.
That's true. That's true. Okay, Dr. Lorraine, then just take us through. So then, who is more at risk of developing drug-resistant TB? What does it look like? Dr. Rungu talks about an aspect of takes longer treatment. So is it like you're on it for a year, maybe 2 years? What usually happens during that case?
Thank you for that question, because I think we have to begin from the point of once you're diagnosed with drug-sensitive TB, what must you do? You must complete your treatment. Because by doing that, one, you increase your chances for cure. Like you've seen, there's evidence that TB, not only is it treatable, it's curable. So that's the first thing. Preventing drug-resistant TB begins by ensuring that you're treated for drug-sensitive TB properly and you complete treatment. So that's the first thing. By taking your drug-sensitive TB medication properly, you reduce your chances of getting drug-resistant TB. That's number one. Number two, you reduce the transmission of TB disease. So back to your question, drug-resistant TB is usually more common in patients who have been exposed to TB drugs, like patients who've been treated but have not completed treatment, and therefore the bacteria, like Dr. Rungu was explaining, has developed resistance to the first-line drugs, to the drugs that we normally use for drug-sensitive TB. So the first group that is at risk are those who have been on treatment in the past and have not been adherent, have not taken their drugs as they should. That's the first group. The second group is maybe patients who've been exposed to a patient who already has drug-resistant TB. So for example, if today I had drug-resistant TB, I'm living in close contact with my family, household members, I have children under the age of 5, the people who live in close contact with me, maybe in the office, all those close contacts of persons who have drug-resistant TB are at a higher risk of getting that kind of tuberculosis. And then, of course, we have situations whereby we have people like refugees, prisoners, or people who are in areas where the health system is not very strong, and so even when they have tuberculosis, they are not able to get the right drugs for the right duration or even the right quality of drugs. And that's why we find a lot more of drug-resistant TB in places like refugee camps, you know, those sort of settings where you have people who are in Kenya or in camps because the countries from where they have come, the health system is not strong. So TB drugs, many times you may not even get a full course of treatment, or the quality is not good. And then of course, as a health system, there are occasions where we may contribute to drug resistance. Again, if for example, my patient is traveling and I do not give him the option of giving him enough drugs to use while he's away, what I'm doing is putting him at risk for not taking his drugs throughout his course of treatment. So those are just a few of the reasons why one would develop drug-resistant TB. But I think what we need to keep reiterating to our TB patients is, one, TB is preventable. So even these masks that we are currently not using as much for COVID, they're actually very important. And a few studies that have been done are indicating that in some countries that the incidence or the numbers of TB will reduce because everyone is wearing a mask. And TB, remember, is transmitted in the same way COVID is transmitted. So by wearing a mask, we are actually reducing the transmission of TB. Unknowingly, but it's actually happening. So number one, TB is preventable. Number two, should you have the signs and symptoms we talked about, you know, that persistent cough, that fever that doesn't seem to go away, that unintended weight loss, and then of course, those night sweats. And then if you see your child is looking sickly, they are failing to thrive, their weight is not increasing as would be expected, they look dull, they are not as playful as they ought to be. Or even worse, maybe you have someone in your family or in close contact who has been coughing for a long time. Start thinking of TB, and even better, ask your healthcare worker for a TB test, okay? So we need to start empowering Kenyans to actually demand for testing, for a test. Many times we have to wait for your doctor. Daktari anajua kila kitu, si ndio? But we need to have people empowered enough to ask for a test. If you have any of those signs and symptoms we've talked about, it's important you go to a health facility and you say, I am feeling this way, can I have a TB test? No one will say no. And then lastly, if you start TB treatment, be keen to complete it. And that's where the kind of support that Elizabeth and Joshua mentioned, where we need to support those in our families, support those in our communities, support those in our offices who may have been diagnosed with TB, to actually complete it by encouraging them to finish their drugs, by giving them a safe space to take medicine without feeling that stigma of utatuambukiza. You know? Yes, because stigma is the one thing that stops patients from seeking care or even stopping treatment too early.
I mean, Elizabeth said this, and of course I know we laughed about it, but it's just sad that you even have to hide the fact that you're taking, you know, you're taking medication. So we hope that one day we'll get to that point where we even remind the person, hey, please take your medication. Here's water. Take your medication, right? Okay. So the question is then, how bad can it get? You know, that is the case of TB. I know we talked about death, you know, and like you said, 12 people die every single day in the country, which is sad. But yeah, how bad can it get? And especially whether it's a late case of diagnosis or no diagnosis at all. So
I will start with the case and I'll summarize it before I get to that. So we had a young, very beautiful, very intelligent girl whom I met when I was very new in the TB program. Actually, she generally nikaribisha TB program because the head of program told me, you have to take care of that girl. That girl was admitted to one of our national referral hospitals and had been diagnosed with resistant TB. This girl had been sickly for quite some time. She was in class 7 I think she was around 12 or 13, if I remember, in 2017. This girl used to live somewhere in one of our slums in Eastlands, and had been treated in a number of private and government facilities, up to 7 times.
Getting better.
Yeah, she wasn't getting better. You know, like he said, when you're treated with some, even wrong treatment can make you feel better for a few days. So the mother used to feel nice. Unfortunately, the kid didn't get better, and unfortunately, they developed resistant TB. So they were admitted to one of the national referral hospitals, and they were very sick at that point, to the point that they required oxygen. You know, people are seeing oxygen in the era of COVID-19. That was pre-COVID. We actually to do a harambe for the girl to have an oxygen concentrator. So that girl, we had to link up with civil society, and I must mention Stop TB. They did quite a good job in getting this girl to have an oxygen concentrator, which was quite pricey in 2017, as you can imagine. So the girl got the concentrator, and they used to live in some slum somewhere around there in Eastlands. So this girl was initially in hospital, started treatment, but unfortunately was in hospital because of oxygen. So they couldn't leave hospital, just oxygen. And of course, the bill was, at that point when I met the girl, was around 700,000 Kenya shillings. That was a lot. So they got the concentrator, so we had them discharged. Unfortunately, the bill was too huge. They had to waiver, but then the family had to be paying some monthly fee or installment every other month for, as per calculation, for up to 30 years. Based on the installment that they had negotiated, because the mother was a mama mboga, the father was a guy of Mjengo, and that kind of thing. You understand the situation. So this girl was on oxygen. So one day, unfortunately, there was a power blackout, as we all know in Kenya, those happen. And this girl could not breathe. So they had to rush to a nearby hospital, church, which was running. They had a generator. Unfortunately, that church at that point in time were doing some form of exorcism of some sort. So they could not interrupt. So they had to rush the girl to, you know, this play where vijana play pool, yamta. Because of the music, the guy had invested in a generator. So they took the girl there. So when they took the girl there, unfortunately the generator there was spoiled. And so the next point, of course, was to drop the girl to hospital. Unfortunately, she died along the way. That girl was 17, was 13 or 14, in class 7, very bright, but died because of that. So that girl died not because of tuberculosis per se, because really we had cured, the lab tests were negative at that point, but the girl had developed such severe disease that the lungs were scarred. Not a nice lung, as you can see behind me there. It was pretty much of a scar. And when your lung is scarred, you know, the function of the lung is to give you oxygen within your blood system so you're able to function. So the girl could not do that. So that's one of the problems with tuberculosis. You get complications that come with the disease. So the germ causes the disease, but then it could, if not treated right, or there's a delay in diagnosis, which we see a lot, causes other problems. It could spread to other parts of the body. So if it goes to your spine, it can give you paralysis, like I've seen in a number of patients. So you can imagine being in a wheelchair for life because of tuberculosis, which you thought can go to the lungs. You cannot breathe. We have a number of patients who, we know one of our TB champions used to be a deep sea diver in Mombasa. Now he's a DJ. He can't do it anymore. And he's DJing well out of breath. So there are these complications that come with this, and other diseases that can arise because of the complications that tuberculosis brings within you. So this is why we really talk about the communities and Kenyans being aware of tuberculosis and what it can cause, so that we treat it at the earliest possible time to prevent. These guys here are evidence that if you get it early, you sort it out. But if you delay the diagnosis, then you get a lot more problems that you begin with.
I like what you're saying, and it's just, and of course just painting that picture to just show you that, listen, let's just act, all of us. It doesn't really matter whether you are at risk of infection or not. Let's just act. Make sure that we
as long as you breathe in Kenya,
you are at risk.
You are at risk of getting tuberculosis.
Okay, then. So for Joshua and Elizabeth, of course, after treatment, right? What are some of the things that did you have to go back, maybe do more tests just to ascertain that you are okay? You know, all the bacteria is gone and you're okay? Or what happened after you completed treatment? I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Thanks so much. That's a challenging question.
Yeah.
Because honestly, yeah, I saw the doctor and now we agreed that I had come to the end of the dosage. Yet nothing much. There was nothing much like remaining to be done.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't know normally how it goes, but then I thought in case of any further complication, then it could be attended to. But then everything went on normally in my life. Being now 10 years later, I believe everything was sorted.
Yeah.
But then we actually didn't do any further testing.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just you completed medication, this is how it is, and you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we literally have like 1 minute, 30 seconds to end the show, right? So I will take like 30 seconds, 45 seconds of each, you know, just as far as then TB lessons that you've learned. You're here today championing, you know, for the same, and you're okay. So Joshua, what would you say very quickly to someone who's watching us right now?
I would like to pass this message to all Kenyans. If you feel like symptoms, like we had mentioned earlier, don't hesitate. Make a quick run, go to the facility, inform your doctor. This is what I've been feeling. Can I do a TB test? Yeah. And on top of that, for the people living in CBD in Nairobi, we got you all covered because we have a semi-limited initiative. We have installed those sites. One is at the railway station. Other one is where local hospital is. But immediately after the bridge, you'll see a white tent there. We're doing the free screen for tuberculosis. For the people in Kamukunji, Gikomba there, marketplace there, Isili people, they just come to the shopping. We got them covered. Okay. Yeah, they can go there and get screened. And the people from Kibera DC, those going to that to get the services for Duma Center, the chief, we got them covered too. We are doing the free screening at Kibera DC.
All right.
And then people from Donom, Umoja, and that other side from Kayole, we are at Makadara.
Okay.
Makadara Uduma Center.
All right. So
yeah,
just
so
go
they can come and get screened at a free cost.
All right.
Yeah, they don't give any pain. It's a free cost.
Just come and go and get screened.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. And then, Dr. Lorraine, as far as then, of course, the National TB Program, together with partners, you know, just to make sure that then again, you know, we reduce the burden of TB in the country. What would you say very quickly?
So I think for me, my message again is to Kenyans. A lot of investment has been put in through the partnership between the Ministry of Health and implementing partners such as Center for Health Solutions with funding from USAID to ensure that any Kenyan who has the signs and symptoms that Joshua has mentioned can actually access free TB diagnosis in a public health facility. That's number one. Number two, that every Kenyan can actually be treated for free at no cost in any public health facility as well, and also a reminder that TB is curable.
It's curable.
I think that's the most important thing I would like to share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Irungu, literally 10 seconds.
Yeah, okay. So what I would want to tell Kenyans, in addition to what my colleagues have said, is that TB is preventable. And individuals who are at high risk of developing tuberculosis, such as if you're living as a person with TB, you're likely to have been exposed. Your children, if you're a patient with TB, your children, and all those individuals, we have what is called TB preventive therapy. So it's treatment we give you once you've been exposed but you don't have TB disease.
Okay.
It is available in this country and is available in any public health facility within this country, free of charge.
All right. Yes. I like that. So you have no excuse whatsoever to not go get screened. And once, of course, you are diagnosed with the same, not to go get treatments, and just adhere to the same. So thank you very much to all of you. Very, very important message that we're passing out today as far as TB is concerned. And thank you as well for watching until the end of the show. Now you know better. So it's time for all of us to act. My name is Winnie Lubembe. On behalf of an amazing team who put together this show, we say thank you for watching and stay safe. God bless. See you soon. Goodbye.